At ease. Welcome to another episode of the Itcs podcast. Today on our panel we have First Lieutenant Crystal Young, United States Marine Corps, Sergeant First Class CHASTAIN Hollins, United States Army retired, Chief Master Sergeant KNOWLTON, Air Force retired, and of course myself, TYESE PRESSLEY, United States Navy Master Chief retired. Today's special guest is Dr. Brenda Lamb. Brenda Lamb has completed 26 years of naval service and retired as a Navy Senior Chief. She's born in Portsmouth, Virginia, but was raised in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Greenwich, Connecticut.
Excuse me, Greenwich. My bad. This is what we're going to have to deal with, y'all, so get used to it. I love her to death, though. She joined the Navy in July of 1984, attended boot camp in Orlando, Florida, attended RMA school. It's an old school rate in the Navy in San Diego, California. Then went to her first duty station in Dam Neck, Virginia, pretty much as Virginia Beach, Virginia. Did her first deployment in Amchitka, Alaska. I'm sure that was something to talk about. Knowing her in Alaska don't mix, but I got it. Then she was assigned to her first ship as an RM2, the USS Hunley, where she would process message traffic for submarines. We call it a subtender in the Navy. She's a plank owner of the USS Bataan, made chief while assigned to Commander Sub Atlantic. Did a tour on board CVN-69 USS Eisenhower as an information systems security manager, and she also made senior chief on the Eisenhower. After leaving the Ike, she became a substance abuse counselor and was the senior enlisted leader for the Department of Mental Health at Naval Medical Center, Portsmouth. Dr. Lamb is a graduate of William & Mary and holds a doctorate in clinical psychology and a master's in behavioral psychology. She's currently assisting transitioning active service members with their VA claims when they separate from the Navy, and she also has a great nonprofit for homeless veterans, empowering veterans for transition and building lifelong foundations. That's impressive. Very, very impressive. How you been?
I'm great. Busy.
Busy. Well, I know you are. So, hey, we just want to get to know you. You know, we got a lot of questions because what you do right now, all service members, I'll probably say 99% of them need what they hands on. How do they get their disability claims? But before we get to that, we'll just talk about, your Navy career. My question to you is, after graduating high school, what was going on in your life that you decided to join the Navy and make it a career?
Well, like I said, I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, whole different type of world. By the time I graduated from high school, I already had 2 degrees. And my mom said, "You want to do something different?" I said, "Sure." I came to Virginia to visit some family members, and they had friends that was in the military. I was like, "Ooh, that might be cool to try." So I tried the Navy. Didn't think I was going to like it. I did and continued on. So it's been a very interesting career. Long, big difference type of lifestyle from Greenwich, Connecticut. However, it taught me a different life from Greenwich, Connecticut. If you guys ever get a chance to look up Greenwich, example, my neighbors down the street were the Kennedys. So I grew up completely different.
Oh, wow.
The running joke is the closer you live to the gates, you was considered the poor people. But that's, that was the running joke. Further the further inland you lived, like up the hills and everything, that's where you had all the money. So there is such thing as poor rich people.
Poor rich people.
Or poor people with money.
Poor people with money. Okay.
Right. I'm just poor.
Yeah, you ain't no poor. I know that's not true.
Yes. So
No. Mm-mm.
so that's how I ended up joining the Navy, taking a completely different path from my upbringing.
My question is kind of I saw a lot of you came in Portsmouth or where in Dam Neck. You went up.
I was born in Portsmouth, meaning that my mom. Okay, let me give you a little background about my family. My mom, we own
There you go.
reservation land in North Carolina. My mom and dad are actually Indians, so we still own reservation land in North Carolina in Robeson County. My mom was well, I don't even want to use the word transitioning. She was coming from up north to go to North Carolina when she went in labor with me, and I was born in Portsmouth, Virginia. So I got caught in the middle. So that's why
Okay.
I was born, and actually they used to have a hospital called Portsmouth General. So that's where I was born at.
Okay. Because I saw that born and I was thinking, wow. Well,
Yeah.
you spent a lot of time in the Virginia area.
So yes,
throughout your career.
my military career, yes.
Yes, your military career. So was that a good thing? Was the family members being in Virginia that long? Were you close to your family members?
Half of 90% of my family is still up north. So, and then I had some family relocate to Virginia. I had some that was already in Virginia. As a matter of fact, I just found out that I have a first cousin that's on the Ford. And I found that out a couple of weeks ago. So, I'm still learning some things about the other side of my family, my dad's side of the family. So that's the side that was actually in Virginia, between Virginia, Boston, Connecticut. So, and then my mom's side is North Carolina, New Jersey, New York, Boston. So it's kind of strange.
What was it like for you leaving Connecticut and joining the military? Because that's like a whole new world. And the way I imagine Connecticut is very, I feel like it's small because everything up there is small, but that it's kind of like a higher class there, I feel like, the bulk of it in that part of the country. And then you join the Navy and we're kind of treated like peons in the beginning, for lack of a better word.
Oh, it was a struggle. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a very straightforward person. It was a reality shock. When I grew up in Connecticut, it was only 6 Black families. When I came in the military, I got a chance to really interact with more of my people, and it was good and it was bad because I was also bullied by our people because I grew up differently. So I had to make a lot of adjustments. I had to do a lot of changing about things and had to understand things a lot differently than what I knew. Boot camp, I was the first person to get cycled because on that 0.5 day, the company commander said, field day. And I looked at her and said, oh no, I have people that look like you to clean my house. Yes. So I was the first person to get cycled in boot camp.
Oh no.
So I had to learn
I actually have a question. Oh, sorry.
a lot.
Wow.
So I have a question for you, senior. So coming off your personality, I was looking through your bio. Don't really know what it means, but I know what the first means. But it said that you were the first female watch officer. Can you talk to us about that? Like, what was your experience like? Because you seem like you have a personality that was like, roll out the red carpet, like, y'all not going to try me in here? Or were you more humble? And were you, like, did you have any challenges with that, being the first?
Okay.
Or did you want them to know you were first?
That too. The submarine community, when I was part of the submarine community, that's when they really had no women. So they was just trying to transition women, not on subs, but on within the norm of shore duties. So I was at comm subland and on the watch floor being a communications person. they gave me orders to comm subland, where I became one of the first female watch officers, actually one of the first female watchstanders, and being senior leadership. Of course, they put me in watchstander position. The very first set of quarters that I had all these males, all submariners, had 4 black males, rest whites, and this one female standing in front of them. And they looking like, what do I say? How's this going to play out? How is this going to pan out? So we standing in the hallway having morning quarters before we take over the watch. And I said, good morning, fellas. It's 2 things you need to know about me. I'm a seagoing sailor, so that means I take no shit and I have no time to play no games. And they was like, whoa. I said, so I told them, I said, I say that to say this. I understand this is going to be a learning curve for you guys, just like it is for me. So some of the stuff that may come out of my mouth is going to shock you, because I've spent a lot of time at sea with male sailors. Submariners had never spent no time with women because it's just all males. So it was a learning curve for both of us. As a matter of fact, one of my Navy sons that was a submariner that I brought up in the Navy, he worked for me. He came off the Mendare Rivers. He's the CMC on the Sandjack. Freddie B. So he always called me, Mom, I need some insight. Mom, I need some advice. So I got quite a few Navy sons still left in the Navy. One of them, a damn pain in the ass, but for the most part.
Awesome.
So I had to learn submariners way of communication. But what I enjoyed was I was humble enough to allow them to teach me. So although I was the watch officer, I'm going to stand, okay, I'm going over here and work statistics. I'm going over here and work broadcast. I'm coming over here and work, as a regular watchstander, because I had to learn their means of communications in order to be a part of their team. And I learned a lot about the sub community. It's a whole different ball game, but I learned a lot.
Wow.
So it was a great experience for me.
It seems like they were very welcoming then to you. Like you didn't have any friction. They kind of welcomed you with open arms.
Once they realized that I was down to earth and I wasn't there to shut them down or make them behave any way outside of their norm. Once they realized that, everything was fine. So that was a good thing.
Now you got to think that was back in the early 90s. And the subs.
Don't rub it.
No, I'm just saying, no, you got to think back then, early 90s, and the sub community just got female submariners maybe 4 years ago, about 4 years ago.
Actual subs, yes.
Yeah. Because my son, he was a submariner when he first came in the Navy, and he was on USS Ohio. And that's where the first female submariners was on that first ship about 4 years ago. 4 years ago. So yeah, it's been, and I'm sure it's a hard transition for them submariners because it used to be all male, all male. So, wow.
Well, I learned that, and I always consider myself to be one of those go-getters. It's just some communities that, for me, should be just left to them guys. I could not see me being on a sub. We got a chance to ride the Hyman G. Rickover. Kevin Akers, who's in Hawaii, he's retired now. Me and him was watchstanders together, and he, we were both chiefs, and he arranged for us to ride the Hyman G. Rickover. So when he took us out there that had never been on subs, myself and a couple new guys that had never been on subs, but they ended up as sublant as their first duty station. As back then, the communicators were called watchstander ETs. They weren't even called radiomen. Mm-hmm. So they were called watchstander ETs. We pulled away from the port, from the pier, and a sub goes, it pulls out, then you hear dive, and boom, it hits the bottom of the ocean, and it comes back up, and then it coasts. But when it hits the bottom of the ocean, guess what happens? The walls collapse. I was like, oh, hell no, this is not for me. So the good thing was, it was just for a couple hours. When we came back in, I was like, y'all can have this shit. This is not for me. But the biggest thing was, okay, it's being a mother. When back then the communications was, they would only come up, the ships would only come up every 2 hours for their comms. So if something was wrong, one, they could not leave. It's not like being on surface ships or being on shore duty, where if you got a Red Cross, you could leave. The sub community did not work that way. So for me, I would always say, I know as a mother, as a wife, this is not something that I could do, finding out months later that something has happened to somebody in my family. And unfortunately, that's what them guys had to endure, because that's what their life was like.
Oh wow.
So I ended up having the utmost respect for them guys, because oh yeah, we had we had to relieve. I don't know if you remember this, Ty, but they had they had 2 subs down in Kings Bay. You know, in Kings Bay, they have subs called boomer subs. They only go out every a blue-green team. They don't make full-fledged deployment. They go out 36 to 90 days, come back in, they swap teams. They call them a blue team or green team. Well, they had some illegal activities going on down there. But the one thing that we had an issue with, when the boomer sailors go out to sea, they stay in water space. And the other side of the watch floor, they write their water space messages. Well, we had a watch officer that left the floor on the other side where he do the water space, and he was gone. So we had the CO of the USS Maryland come out of his space, out of his water space, come up and come sub and watch floor. Where is my fucking water space message? Well, once he did that, he breached all laws of the sub community. So we had to send out a message, sub law, sub sunk, sub. It went across the world. I would tell you this. This is what I learned. They had a guy die. The corpsman put him in the freezer like we're supposed to, but they were supposed to stay at the bottom of that ocean in that water box. And because he came up, he did all kinds of breaches. So the admiral at the time was, I ain't gonna never forget him, was Admiral Gigliani. He was on that watch floor. Him, N6, N1 was on that watch floor in 2.2 seconds. They had us get a Coast Guard cutter. It was a Coast Guard cutter Bear. Went down and escorted them back up there. The watch officer, the whole team on the sub, they all got to relieve, but the watch officer went to jail. They handcuffed that man on that watch floor and took him to the brig. And it took us 3 days to clean up that mess. We was on that watch floor for 3 days because we were the ones that had to send out all the messages. So we had to clean up that stuff. And I tell you what, I learned a lot in reference to what them 3-letter codes mean, the water space, the importance of that stuff, because they call it the Silent Navy for a reason. And when they breached that, you know, it's unbelievable. But the issue was they was just sitting at the bottom of the ocean. Well, once you sit in the bottom of the ocean, you're already compromised. So he still should have just sat there and not came up out of his water space. It was interesting. So that's when I learned I had some sharp guys. I had some sharp guys on that team. Like I said, Hearn is a Master Chief now. I had one that got out. I had Kiefer got out. I had one that went LDO. I pinned on his. I had 2 of them went LDO. I pinned on their boss when they went LDO. So it was an interesting tour at Subland for me.
We got like a thing on this, you know, all of us. Like, someone always asks the best questions, and of course it has to be Crystal to ask that question because it sparked you to start talking about that stuff. Now I read it and I seen it, but Crystal always asks the good questions and get people to, you know, telling their story. I don't know how she does it, but she's an officer. Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
No, that was really interesting. That was really interesting. Oh my,
that's cool. So so you make senior chief, you know, doing your thing. So you transfer from an RM, and an RM, like I was telling them before, our RM IT, you have the ability to make a good amount of money on the outside once you retire as an IT, you know, especially doing what you was doing with them comms. And you switched it from, well, I'm not going to be a IT, even though I can easily at a minimum make $150,000.
Doing what? Playing with a computer and looking at a computer. I was a tech controller. I was a troubleshooter. You could not pay me to sit in your computer room all day and push buttons or tell somebody, cut it on and off. That might work. Because ITs are not bright. Sorry.
Right.
They lack the ability to communicate, and they lack the ability to troubleshoot. They have no idea what's wrong with their equipment. You can't keep telling me to cut it on and off and think it's going to magically work. No. Sorry.
So that's why we didn't go that route. I see now.
That did not enjoy helping people. I got into working with people while I was still an IT. So I got into working with people, helping people, counseling on the civilian sector. I was a counselor where I worked with the courts with abused children and having them placed in homes and stuff. So I was doing a lot of other stuff outside of my military career. I worked as a Seton youth counselor. So I did a lot of counseling that showed me that my path was more, and my passion was more of helping people than it was with communications. So that's why I continued on with that path. So it's not about
you in the space of the. Hey, I see it now. I understand. I completely understand. And I'm one of probably thousands and thousands to be firsthand and know your passion is really about helping people. I definitely know that, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But to the mental health side, why that?
It's all a part of helping people. Mental health. When I started, looks completely different than it does now, but it still involves helping people, working with people, assisting people with meeting life on life terms, and trying to get them back on the path that they know or they never knew. So it all boils around helping people. Mental health is a title, but the passion, because I always tell people we have a lot of mental health doctors out there, but how many have the passion? You do not come in the helping field to become rich. I will tell you that. So either you have the passion for it and you're genuine about helping people. If you're not genuine, you can do more harm than good. So, but mental health just ended up being where I landed with my path of helping people.
Okay.
So when you talk about mental health,
one of the questions.
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I just wanted to ask more about mental health. Like it's funny that you said that, because I remember we had a conversation like before just about mental health when you said that it's not what it used to be. In your opinion, do you feel like we've gotten better? Like, I know we still have some room to go, but when it comes to mental health, do you feel like just the military in general, are we making progress towards making sure that we are helping service members who are actually having issues? Or do you still think that there's this stigma around mental health? Anybody who's having any issues at work, like no one wants to work with them. But what's your opinion on it?
Mental health. I have several opinions because I've been on both sides, right? I do mental health counseling on the civilian side. I've done it on the military side. I guess the issue is not so much as are we really helping them as if who really needs it. Who really needs it? Who when it comes to, is it something I can really deal with on a regular basis, or is it used as a crutch? Is it real something that needs to be addressed yesterday, that I come in with this issue? What is it that makes mental health for every individual the go-to, the cry for help? Why mental health and nothing else? Is the question. What is the big deal about mental health now? Does anybody know?
No, because basically you're saying it's always been there, but
Yes.
now
We're just more awareness to it,
we
maybe.
more awareness. Yeah, right, right,
Well,
right.
the awareness has always been there because remember, I did mental health when I was on active duty. I was on that fifth floor
Okay.
with Portsmouth. So mental health is nothing new. I think the biggest thing that I see now is we can't really say it's a big stigma there, and it is accessible, but they're draining the system. So we need to have different levels of mental health for different levels of issues or diagnosis. When I have a person that come in, I give you a perfect example. If I have a person that come in and they only been in the military 2 months and I'm already at mental health, what should that tell you?
Oh, they had them issues.
They probably
before
had
they
it
came
before
in.
they got there.
Pre-existing.
Bingo. But I'm going to be allowed to drain the system,
Pre-existing.
drain everything that comes along with it because I came with these issues. They were never addressed. So it makes the military look like it's a stigma, that it's bad, they're not helping people. And that's unfair. That's unfair on both sides.
But there's also people that abuse the system too.
I can't hear you, sweetie.
I said there's also people that abuse the system as well. That
Right.
don't even necessarily need to be there.
Right. Yes, that's what I was saying in reference to there's different levels of the system being used and drained. And mental health has become so overwhelming, not just in the military side, but in the civilian sector. We have a lot of people leaving the field for more reason than one. So it is becoming overwhelming. When I started mental health, I started with kids. I started off as working with kids. And like I said, I was a Seton youth counselor. I worked, I don't know if you know what this is at Ty, but beside the food bank off of Tidewater Drive, there's a counseling center. And I used to counsel over there when I was still on active duty. And this is when I learned how rough females can be. Because first time I had a young lady, she was in 11th grade at Booker T, and we was having group. And she had an ankle bracelet on. I looked, I said, well, what is that? And one of the guys said that'd be on house arrest. I said, we don't use those words in group. But before I realized that she had picked that chair up, boom, slammed him on the floor, and she was wailing on him. I was like, what the?
Oh my.
Whoa. So I got my first taste of, the difference in environments. The difference, you have to meet. I had to learn how to meet these kids where it was at, because I had one little guy look at me and tell me everybody in my neighborhood sell drugs. Or one guy told me, he was like, "Don't come here talking that white man shit to us." So I had to learn to make the adjustment of what would work. Would work with these kids when I was in group with them, and so a lot of them was attached to their environment. So I stopped coming to group in heels and suits, and I started coming in jeans, sneakers. Let's do this. I had to get with them. And I would say the kids taught me a lot in reference to meeting them where they was at, because I can't talk above your head if you have no idea what I'm talking about, if you've never experienced what I'm trying to explain to you. So, and then I also had, what took me out of working with kids was I had a 6-year-old that committed suicide. Very smart young man, but he was fascinated with suicide. And I'll tell you, his parents had money and he had a full team. I was a psychologist, he had a psychiatrist, he had a full IEP team. I got a phone call at 2:02 in the morning saying that this little boy jumped out of the window of his family home with his sheet around his neck. He was 6 years old. They always teach you that you will always have that one that will hold you for the rest of your life. For me, it's that one. After that, I could no longer work with kids because I have grandchildren. So for me, that's really hard. And so when I see the stuff that's going on with these kids and their behaviors, and it's not new, it's always been there. It's just now being addressed because it's crossing over to other people's lives. it's impacting other people that at one time could care less about mental health of children, unless it was so severe that they were always put into homes, hospitals, and things like that. So this is where it has become a major issue. It's always been there.
Well, and one other thing to add to that, you know, I deal with IEPs and stuff all the time now. I'm in the education field, but you just hit something that's critical. Those same kids that have IEPs in high school are the same kids that's going into the military.
Yes.
And there's no in between. You know, if you change schools, your IEP follow you. Well, right now, there's no, if they're not taking medicine, there's no follow from going to high school to the military. And I think that is so key because, you know, I have a young lady she's in the military right now. And 2 years ago, like you said, she had a breakdown. But as long as she wasn't on a certain type of medicine, some of that stuff doesn't follow her to her military career. So I truly agree. I understand IEP. You're right. I say today, I don't know how the military is going to get caliber, great quality students or recruits, no matter which branch of the service, because there are so many kids on IEPs. There are so many kids on medicine today, and they're just not stable. So
that is true.
That's a very good point.
Wow.
That is true.
Ma'am, in your opinion, do you feel like kids today, or even young adults today, have far more mental health issues than they did like back in your day or even in my day? Or is it more of a kind of looking for the easy way out kind of thing?
I blame the government. Back in the day, we could bust ass. We can't bust ass no more. I'm sorry. But some of it is the government's fault, because the minute you start telling kids, you can call on your parents, you can call on your teachers, they can't be disciplined. They lack the ability to separate the difference between abuse and discipline. So now everything looks like abuse. So when we start allowing the kids to have the power, it has bled over into every aspect of life. You look at what's going on in the world today, whether it's mental health, whether it's with the violence, whether it's with the guns, whether it's with the, I'm going to do what I want to do. It started when the power was taken away from the adults or the parents that was actually raising kids. So now we've learned, and I bring it up to say this. So now for every issue, the best way to address it is, they have a mental health issue. First, it was every child has ADHD. Every child has ADD. Now, every child has autism. They are all on spectrums. But that's not true. Yeah. How about we address what the real issue is? Everybody does not have a mental health issue. But they're making it seem like there is not a person on the face of this earth that does not have a mental health issue. And that is not true. And it's sad. And that's when now it has become the international crutch for everything that goes wrong in society.
I think a lot of it is because there's pressure to give a diagnosis. And instead of taking the time that's needed, because one box doesn't fit everybody. Everybody's different.
And you're
this
right.
person may take, a month to diagnose, whereas this person, it could be challenging and it could take months to years to really get the root of what's going on with them. But I think a lot of times it's rushed because there's pressure from outside sources and families and stuff like that. And I think that impacts you guys and what you guys can do and be effective.
Well, if you drown out the background noise and you decide to be a good mental health provider, you will make sure that diagnosis is thorough, because one, it impacts that individual the rest of their life. And two, if I misdiagnose you, what's going to happen down the line? I can't say you're schizophrenia. Well, you just may be bipolar, because once I diagnose your schizophrenia, that creates a whole nother level of issues. So as a good mental health provider, you most definitely cannot diagnose a person in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's actually, you're right. It's supposed to take some months, especially if you want to get it right. And you want to make sure that, okay, one diagnosis may be feeding the other. But if it is, then that means that it's more than one diagnosis. I can't cookie cut your diagnosis. That's not going to work either, because I'm still going to miss something that needs to be treated.
I wanted to ask you about, so you switched over to mental health as a senior chief.
Right. And actually, and this is something that Ty don't know. I know Famous them know this. I actually made Master Chief.
Oh.
And so what happened was I was over in Portsmouth, and my detailer called me because I was in special programs, substance abuse special programs. My detailer called me and said, "Hey, we're going to send you back to sea." I was like, "Oh, I don't think so." I was not nice about it. I said, "You out your effing mind." I told him, my seat time, I promise you, I've got more seat time than you and a lot of women out there, because back then, women weren't even going to sea. So I told him, I said, "I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and drop my papers," which I did. I, sat down with a couple of the docs that I worked with, found out how close I was to my PhD, and I dropped my papers.
Wow.
And when it got to the special programs detailer, he said, "Man, I would hate to see you go." He said, "You're going to be 2 months away from collecting master pay." I said, "I don't care. I got bigger and better things in my mind." But you know what? That same detailer came through TAP about 4 years later, and guess who help he needed? Dr. Lance.
So what I think is interesting about that is that the Navy put you through these certifications so late in your career for you to reclass to a whole nother career field. But I don't see that happening in the Army at all.
It wasn't a career field. It was just a different type of job. But when being in the Navy, when you're a leader, they could have put me down an engineer. If they say, "I need you an engineer," I'm no longer a worker bee. I am a leader. Okay. So that's the difference. If I'm going to lead, I should be able to lead no matter where they put me at, if I'm going to be a good leader.
So it's not like your actual MOS changed. It was more like an additional duty.
Well, right, because I kept my title, I kept my spots. It was just a different type of job of a field that I went into. Because although I was a IT, I was in charge of corpsmen, hospital corpsmen, because they all work for me, mental health techs, doctors, nurses. I was in charge of them guys because that was the field that I moved into, but I was the senior leader for.
Okay.
So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
You just led into an area that I want to talk a lot about. Dr. Lamb, you talked about helping that guy to tap. I think that's very important. No, because I saw you as part of the pre-discharge program. And my question to you is a two-part question. If I'm at my 15-year point, what would you tell me as a sailor, soldier, airman, or Marine about how do I prepare to get my military disability in order? What kind of advice would you give me?
I'm going to tell you what I tell all of them that call in there. You continue to do the job you get paid for on the 1st and the 15th, because you work for DOD, not the VA. And I continue to tell them that. And I'm being honest. I guess that's the part of me that's still the military side. Is, I tell them, how can you be concerned about a disability? Something that, one, not mandatory that you do, and I'm just going to keep it real. However, you should be leading. That means that you're a leader. You should be taking care of your junior sailors, airmen, Army. You should be taking care of your junior people and doing your job that you get paid for on the 1st and the 15th. But if I have 15 years, if I'm starting to work on my disability, that means I'm spending a lot of time at medical. Then when am I doing my job? When am I doing my leadership? When am I taking care of the people that I get paid to do? So at
So
15,
I have a question.
Okay.
that's the answer that I gave them. I had a young lady call me. She said, "Oh, I retired in 2024. What should I be doing?" I said, "Your job." And I'm serious. You should be doing your job.
Right.
But
Go ahead,
y'all
Crystal.
be like,
No. You know, I'm still talk about it because I already know. Go ahead, Chris. I got you. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I actually have a question about that. So for me right now, like I'm over the drill instructor. I'm at recruit training, MCRD San Diego, and so back in October we had a recruit pass away while we were hiking. Two of my drill instructors, one in particular, was the one like doing the CPR on him, you know, and he expired. He was still, you know, and afterwards he was trying to be so strong, but I can just tell in his mannerisms and stuff. And even this year on the anniversary when we did the hike again, he had like his kill card in his pocket. And I'm like, how are you doing? How are you doing, Sergeant Lugo? You know, and he's like, ma'am, I'm doing fine. But you know, like, you know, he'll tell me he has his days. But for me, I tell him, you need to go to medical. You need to get this documented because I don't know how this is going to affect you later down the road.
okay, that's the issue right there. It's not about getting it documented. How about I say, you know what? I noticed some changes in you. I'm going to recommend you go seek some help. Because it's not even about documentation. The documentation is going to take place when you get the help. See, so many people focus on, oh, you got to get a document. You got to get a document. It's not about the documentation. You need to seek help because you know you don't know how this is going to impact you down the line. That's the key of what you use. So when I say, when you tell a person, oh, you got to get it documented, they thinking, okay, now I got to go to medical. But if I tell you, hey, I would just like for you to go get seen and get a chance to process what you're going through. We take care of everything else. That's different than the person that say, well, I'm going to medical, get it documented because I wanted it for my VA claim. That's the difference.
Okay. Because for him, and a lot of drill instructors, like there's this negative stigma with mental health, right? So if I say you need to go to mental health, but at this point, it's just like you need to talk to someone because what I don't want to happen is he get out of the Marine Corps and then it starts to affect him. And then now like there's no paper trail that like you were even going through anything because you're trying to keep it in.
Let me ask you a question. If he hurt his back, he would go right to seek treatment.
So in any other Marine instructors, you have to force them. You have to, because they're built to to show no weakness. So with drill instructors, they're not like the ones that like, I'm gonna go to medical, I'm gonna get on light duty or whatever the case may be. They don't do that. So like as officers, we have to make sure like that they're going and they're taking care of their bodies. But I will say in the fleet, a fleet Marine, yes, ma'am. Like it will be that way. Like they would definitely go and get it documented.
Oh, I know. I see plenty of them. E9s and below, colonels. I see them all. They something else. Yes. So, but this is the way you address it to them. Just, let them know, say, for my peace of mind, I would like for you to at least be seen to make sure that you're okay. So it's the way that you relay the message, and it has to show some humbleness. Humbleness is not a sign of weakness. Humbleness is showing that I genuinely care about you and I need you by my side. As long as I know you're okay, I know you got my back. But if you're not okay, how do I know you have my back?
Yes, ma'am.
How you talk about humbleness, it's just funny because I would look at you like a humble bumblebee. A humble bumblebee. You know what I'm saying? You humble, but you'll sting somebody in a minute. But no, so Neil, to go back to your question and piggyback off of Crystal's question, what she's saying is, because I was ignorant just like that. It's because her and I always talk about it, so I kind of like, I don't want to be that C lawyer for disability claims, but her and I talk about these things, and I always say, before, get it documented. But it's really like, if you're hurting, go to medical. If you got an issue, go to medical. They're going to document it when you're there. And if the issues, continuously persist, they're going to continue to document it because you're going to medical to treat either a back injury, a foot sprain, mental health, whatever it may be, eye laceration, whatever it may be. Go to medical. you know, but it's just the part of us is being ignorant and not understanding the passion that she has behind it. And we just come up with these things. Again, lawyers. The C lawyers of the VA, I guess.
That's
But
what I call them. Yeah.
yeah, you know. So now when the service members get to that point, you know, no matter if they did 2 years, 10 years, 20 or whatever, when they got to come to you because they separating, retiring, or whatever it may be, what is items that they should have, you know, when they come to see you?
Well, okay, so the VA rule is this. The soonest you can do anything for an active duty pre-discharge claim is 180 days from your official separation or retirement date. Not your terminal leave date, not your skill bridge date, not any of that, because all of that is calculated into that time. So it's 180 days from your official separation or retirement date. That is the rule. And you must have all treatment records. That includes a copy of your original dental record, a copy of the original medical jacket. So when I bring that up to people, they're like, what's that? That very first jacket that holds that very first physical you took to say you fit to come in the military. And the color of that record is based off your Social Security number. So mine's orange. My medical jacket and, you know, the cover of my medical jacket, my dental jacket is orange. So you need, and the medical jacket is 4 sections. You need all 4 sections of the copy of what's in the medical jacket. You need everything that's in the dental jacket. The Alta medical notes. In 2003, Department of Defense went to what's known as the Alta medical notes. So the best way I explain it to people is, you know, when you go to medical, and they asking you questions such as, do you smoke? Do you drink? Are you suicidal? You know, what brings you here? And they type it in the computer system. Well, that's called the Alta system. And when those notes are printed up, they look a certain type of way. As of January the 11th, Department of Defense went to what's known as the Genesis system. And Genesis is a beast and it's not working. So that's, you know, a struggle with getting your up-to-date medical records if you've been to medical anytime after, I would say after January the 23rd. They're having a hard time with getting the Genesis system correct. So I tell people the Alta notes, if you can get your Genesis notes and your Hames encounters. Hames records are a list of, there are different type of records. Hames records carry information such as, say, if in the time of your military career you went to a civilian doctor or emergency room, has shots in your knees and backs, things of that nature. It is unique from the Alta system. They go into the Hames system. And of course, if you have any mental health notes, whether they DOD or civilian, you got to have those as well. Now, mental health notes, people don't understand that you must do a release form to get your mental health notes released to you. Everybody cannot get into your mental health notes. We having a big issue with, you know, it goes back to the DOD mental health facility, mental health is so overwhelmed right now. So they're just farming people out in town, farming them out in town. And they give them a list. You have to find your own provider. The issue is we have providers that refuse to give them their notes. It's like, you can't do that. Once they release, you have to sign a release form either to give them notes to you or they can send them back to Portsmouth. Technically, they're supposed to send them back to the facility that referred them. I'm just using Portsmouth Naval Medical Center because I'm in this area. So they technically, that provider is supposed to be sending those notes back to that system, and you should be collecting them from that system. But if they don't, and you do the release form to have and provide it to that person that you're seeing or that company you're seeing, they're still supposed to provide you with your mental health notes. Now, I've had some email them to me because a lot of the doctors know me. Well, I'll send them to you. Okay, just give me the notes, whatever. Technically, I'm not supposed to take them, but I'll take them to prevent a bunch of extra shenanigans that come with some. But those are the records. So we always tell them you should have 45 different types of records to start this process. And I always tell people this.
How do you say 45 different type of records?
4 to 5.
Oh, 4 to 5. Oh, okay.
Different type.
A different type of records. Okay.
Your VA claim will never mirror your separation physical. it would never mirror your separation physical. The separation physical is conducted differently than a VA claim. The separation physical entails them going through your records and looking over everything that you fill out. Your VA claim is based off a diagnosis. So so if I went to medical because my they took a toenail off, that would be on your separation physical, but that's not going on your VA claim.
Okay.
The purpose of the VA claim is to address long-term chronic and disabling issues. That's the purpose of the VA claim. So people tend to think they're going to mirror each other, but they don't, and they will not. The separation physical is mandatory to say you're fit to leave the military. The VA claim is not a mandatory process. You do not have to do a VA claim. So people tend to think they one and the same, and they're not.
I was going to ask if you've had any experience working with prior service like Desert Storm era or Vietnam era people that never filed any type of claims, and now they're trying to come and see if they qualify for something. Because I've had people since I've retired from those eras ask me what they need to do, and I've helped them as best I can. But a lot of them don't have any of their paperwork anymore.
Okay.
Never did anything coming out.
So, all medical records go to archives. For people that don't receive records, they use the standard form 180. The standard form 180 is the form they will send to archives. If you ever look at that form based off the time that you served in the military, that they served in the military, it provides them with an address for service records and medical records, where you will send that form to request a copy of your records. So for people that's out of that era, and this is another thing, people don't understand the importance of a DD-214, or back in the day, they were called DD-215s. So, because if you ever looked at your DD-214s or for the guys that's in the era for Vietnam and all of that, World War II, they were called DD-215s. It lists the places that they have been, the wars that they were in. So that's another form of evidence that can be used for people that have no records. Because, at one time in the 70s, the archives did burn down.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of stuff was lost. So they have to piece together whatever they can. I did a guy claim that was in, oh my God. He was retired Air Force. He was in the Air Force from like 60 something to the early 90s. Had never did a claim. And you know how I met this man? And don't judge me. We were sitting at a bar. I had met some friends. We was having happy hour, and he was sitting in there, and they was talking about VA stuff. And I said, guys, can y'all please not talk about this? I'm here to have some drinks. And so he waited until we were done. He said, so you help with VA claims? And I said, I do. How can I help you? And so he started talking to me about his situation. Let me tell you what's crazy. He had bits and pieces of piece of paper. There was in some type of riot and overseas where they had snatched them out of this hotel that they was in and drug them through the streets. They was rescued and put on a bus and brought back to the States through Germany and all that. He was retired. He retired from the Air Force. But do you realize he had bits and pieces of like the claims ticket for everything that they lost and things like that from back then. So I had to piece together a claim for him, and he ended up getting 80%. So just from us piecing together little things like that, because he had no records. And he did have a retirement physical that we used as well. So the stuff that was on that retirement physical, we translated it to a claim, and I had him do a PTSD write-up form, and we submitted it, and it worked. So sometimes when guys have nothing, you have to work a little harder to piece together something for them, because they'll look at you and say, I don't have anything, or I don't know where the good look, or I don't know where that stuff is at.
Wow.
So sometimes it's the little things that may help.
Right.
were able
So
to
as you're
be
helping these people,
sorry, I know.
I can't hear you. Go ahead.
such as saying,
I was just saying that's incredible that you were able to get him 80% all these years later.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
my sister did 2 years in the Army from 72 to 74. She finally let me do her claim last year. She got 80. I was like, hold up. But, you know, so again, piecing together some records.
yeah. Dr. Lamb, you know, I see you helping everybody. One question I have, which is, at what point when you're helping these individuals today, does everybody need e-benefits? Do they need to create an e-benefit?
They need ebenefits/va.gov because that is the way that the va.gov is what the VA is using to actually interact with you with everything. So for like I have an old e-benefits account, so some of my stuff is on e-benefits. However, when I'm looking for certain things, it'll say, oh, you must go to va.gov. Okay. So the reason they separated is the VA is big on security. So e-benefits was created by DOD.
Okay.
And it has a lot of DOD stuff on it and some VA stuff on it. However, when the VA start putting more personable stuff or more PII on it, they had to transition from DOD because they require a whole different level of security. So,
okay.
but that va.gov account is real important.
Okay. va.gov. Okay. All right. So,
All right. Oh, go ahead. I knew.
this will be my final question for you. Does it matter? I don't know if you do yours under a service organization or under your nonprofit. Do you submit your claim through, I call them like veteran organization like AMVET, or like through your the county have what's called a veteran service officer? Or now you see a lot of these commercials going, I can get your VA disability, and then they charge you. So what do you think of those types of deals?
Well, this is the thing. You have companies that will charge. However, I tell people this. If I come to you and I tell you, oh, I can get you disability, these are the questions you should ask. Are they up on the latest information? If you tell me I have to mail my stuff in, I have to submit my stuff myself, then they're not part of the VA system. For anybody that's part of the actual, that's accredited, the VA accredits their actual VSOs, the actual individual claims advisors. You're accredited and you have a PIV card that allows you to actually log into the VBMS system and put your claims in, track your claims. If a person or organization does not have the access, they may know how to do claims, but they're going to do you a disservice because they don't keep up on the latest and greatest of anything. They're just going to give you some information, throw together something, and you're going to be mad, and they've taken your money.
So they got companies out there, and I know they always do service members bad. You know, people out, from car dealerships to you name it. But you saying that people out there are charging veterans for a claim, and they're not even doing nothing for them?
Well, they're not what?
They're not doing they're not helping them get probably getting a small percentage at best. I'm sure.
This girl told me she paid this company $5,000 and she got nothing. And this is the thing, because they can sell it. They can sell it. And the sad part about it is, what's the hottest thing going now? Disability. That is the hottest thing going. And so it's so much noise out there. It's so much incorrect noise out there that is sad, because it's so much money in the VA system. Everybody wants some of that money. And guess who the victims are? The veterans. Because instead of being patient, doing their homework, and then, other veterans are the worst too. Because and this is what I always tell people, if I was not working in this field, and if Miss Young get ready to get out, she's getting ready to retire. And she come to me and say, oh, Miss Brenda, tell me about your process. And I start talking to her about some shit from 2010. She should punch my ass. And I'm being serious because I'm going to tell her what it was like 10 years ago. The way that things are changing now, I may walk in my office tomorrow and have a whole new set of rules. But because you get these VAC lawyers and they constantly putting bad information out there, and I know you guys read it on the websites and see the chat on the websites. I always tell people you need to ask these people 3 questions that's giving you all this information. Are they a VA rater? Are they a VA vendor? And do they work for the VA? If they can't say yes to any of that, then you might want to, well, how do you know all of this? What insight can you provide me? Because what people fail to realize, whether it's a pre-discharge claim, whether it's a veterans claim, a FTC claim, or it's a standard claim, the process is this for all claims. When a veteran submit a claim or active duty member submit a claim, they all go to Janesville, Wisconsin, which is the claims intake center. The claims intake center upload scan. They go to a scanning company and it's scanned to the VBMS. That is what's known as the Veteran Benefits Management System. If you have a PIV card, say if I represent Miss Young, the minute I do her claim and it's uploaded into that system, like every aspect of that claim, from what rating center developed it, who they order her exams through, if there's something wrong with that claim, when her rating comes back, I can track all of that. And I should as a good VSO, because I need to be able to call Miss Young and say, hey, you know what? Your claim is done. You got 100% PNT. And let me tell you what was denied. Let me tell you what they say is deferred and explain to you what it means. If they come in as, if she is my client, I should be able to say, hey, you need to upload DD 214 member 4. I say member 4 because the VA is looking for the character of discharge. Or some I think maybe for the Army and Air Force it may say member 2 at the bottom, but that character of discharge has to be the one that's uploaded into VA.gov. Or you can wait until your organization uploaded, but it's faster is if you upload it once you receive it. The other myth is this, that those medical records belong to you. No, they don't. When you're discharged from the military, those medical records and dental records go to archives. Your records are part of your claim. This is why we tell people you need a copy of your original record. Because say if I broke my ankle prior to coming in the military, and as I go through the military and I start having problems with my ankles, plantar fasciitis, but on my my first initial physical that says I'm fit to join the military, it shows that I have problems with that ankle. Well, when I do my claim, whatever doctor the VA sends me to, he has to nexus that injury, stating that yes, it has gotten worse due to my time over the military because I had it prior to coming in. And they can only find that if they go through my original medical record. They tag when things are put in your claim, it's tagged in your records. The person that's developing that claim is tagged, say, okay, page 46 says you have sleep apnea. Page 88 shows your diagnosis for this, for your back or your neck or your headache, so on and so forth. Once all of that is done, then it allows them to put the request in through one of the vendors for your CMP exams. Compensation and pension exams are mandatory. It's what keeps the transparency of the whole process. The VA does not touch that claim but 3 times. When it's uploaded to that system, and everything is actually done through the cloud. The cloud routes it to a rating center. It's 70 different rating centers. So my claim may be routed to 325. 325 is Cleveland. Cleveland may develop that claim and order my exams. it goes back up to the cloud. And if you ever notice this on va.gov, it'll stay in gathering evidence phase until it's ready for decision or until that decision is complete. It stays in that phase a long time. Once I get my exams, the doctors do the write-up and they upload it into the system. The system pings because they have a deadline that they're supposed to get those results uploaded into the system. Once all of your exams are uploaded into the system makes it ready for decision. Once it's ready for decision, the cloud routes it to another rating center. So it may go to Phoenix to be rated. That's what I said. People don't understand what really goes on with these claims.
And that's why I guess they feel like I filed my claim. Why I haven't got nothing back yet? You know, it's been a month. Why haven't I got nothing back? You know, but I guess it's a thorough process that it goes through.
It is a process.
Yeah.
So I give you an example. Like people think that the BDD claims mean that you're gonna get paid the first day. That is not what that means. It allows you to submit your claim while you're still on active duty and get your CMP exams completed while you're still on active duty. It also allows you to have a rating as long as there's nothing wrong with that claim within the first 30 days of you getting out of the military. Like right now, all the guys that got out February and March, their claims are being rated now. Some have come back, some haven't, but they are at a rating center. So once they get to, say, my guys that have retired in March, I get a chance to go in the system and check them, and it'll say RDC. When it says RDC, ready decision complete, the first thing I do is go look at the code sheet because that tells me what their rating is, and I get a chance to see what they got, percentage they got for every rating, every individual rating that was put on that claim. I get a chance to look at it. So that's how the process works.
So okay, transitioning from ratings, I get a rating back to say I looked at everything and it says I'm 120%.
There's no such thing as 120%. Well, let me rephrase.
Okay, so add up all the percentages add up to 120, but then I only got 80. I'm just throwing out a number. I only got 80%.
Yes, because it's a logarithm. It's a logarithm. So
even though I added up myself with my calculator and it came to 120%, but all I got was 80%. Right,
because it's not added up like that. 120 does not equal 100%. It is it's a 7-phase logarithm that the system used to calculate those ratings. The average person has to have a total, and it's points of 250 points to get 100% PNT. And depending on the rating center, some can get it with 230, depending on what they're rated for. So if I get 50% for sleep apnea, if I get 50% for my mental health and 50% for my migraines, that's 150%. And then say I have 20% for each shoulder, 20% for my neck, 10% for my feet, my knees, so on and so forth. And then if I have 30 zeros, and I calculate, because 10 zeros equal to 1 point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's why I say it's a logarithm. But if my first 3 is at 150 points already, I know that with everything that I have left on my claim, and if it pans out right, I should get over that extra 100 points to get that 100% PNT. Because my heavy hitters have already got me over halfway there.
Wow. Because it's a lot of people come up with a lot of assumptions. Again, they did the calculations on a calculator, and then that 150 didn't equal to.
No. And then if I get, and then you have the specialty ratings, the SMCs, the SMKs, SMMs.
Oh, that was my next question. Yeah. So how do I get to you already talking about it, because I know that's a different lane.
Well,
SMCs and SMKs.
specialty ratings is extra monetary that's calculated into your overall award payment. So it entitles you, say, for loss of limb, loss of organ, housebound, things like that. The VA have what's known as specialty ratings. So when they calculate your overall award amount that you're going to get a month, that monetary piece that you're entitled to from those specialty ratings or specialty codes is already calculated into your final payment. So, for instance, male erectile dysfunction, you'll get 0%, but that's an extra $120 a month. That's already calculated into your final payment. Same thing, say for females, when you have a hysterectomy or partial, that's a K rating, SMC K rating, and it entitles you to an extra so much amount of money a month for loss of organ. But when you get that final payment, it's already calculated in that award.
Okay.
What about, I heard that there's a certain compensation you can receive for
Wait a minute,
incidents
I
that
can't
are
hear you, sweetie.
directly related. Incidents that are directly related to combat time, you can get separate pay for those too.
That's called CRSC. And what that is you have to put in the application to DFAS. The only person that can approve that is DFAS. It's a whole process.
Okay.
That's completely.
I've read about it, but I don't know anybody that's actually able to tie something to directly downrange.
I actually have 3 guys do it. One of them was a Navy SEAL captain. He did it. And one of them was actually a friend of mine, an AB. He did it. And I use Captain Marvels because he sent it back to me. He said, Miss Brenda, if somebody want to do it and need help, we used his as an example. And they was able to get it. And then the other guy, he helped somebody else get his. So it's what it is it's an application you submit, and it asks you to document everything that's on your package that says combat related. It has to say combat related. Those are the things that you put on and what percentage that you receive for it. What happens is DFAS take the whole application and everything that's combat related, and they do a calculation. If they consider everything combat related, then you get your full retirement check, tax-free, plus some extra money, plus your disability tax-free. So that's the purpose of the CRSC. But
in order to do that, you got to have some things going on, I'm sure, right?
Well, it has to be, it's the key word is combat related. Because if you ever go back and look at for you guys that have ratings, go back and look at your package. It'll either say combat or static disability. Yeah, go look at that package where it says static disability, combat related disability. Static disability means it's a rating. It would not get better, but it wasn't caused by combat. So that it makes it a static disability.
Would you be the one that talks to people about once they get awarded their percentage, and for those that are 100% rated, you know how they receive additional funds for their dependents?
Chapter 35,
So when I received my rating, no one told me about that. I just happened to be reading through like my packet of everything when I got my rating, like some months later, and I saw on there, and then I was surprised that even dual military, you still get additional funds for your spouse.
Yep, you do. And that's that's why I say if you use a VSO, that's their job is to represent you. So those are all the things that they should be telling you and going over your package with you and things like that. So I always tell people, make sure that when you select a VSO, you select the person that's going to have your best interests at heart, and they're going to walk you through this process. So when it's time, like if you have questions about a rating or the doctor didn't ask me this. I had a guy called my office the other day, and he told me about his experience with his doctor. I told him, I said, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to call the vendor back, and we're going to request some new exams because you felt uncomfortable with the doctor, and you felt like the doctor did not have your best interest at heart. And the reason we are able to do that is because part of that contract these vendors have with the VA is they have to make sure that the exam is proper, that these doctors conduct the exam in accordance with the CFR 38 Part 4, which is the rating book that governs the VA. These doctors get training. We all know, we've all been in the military. We know what happens. They get the training, and then some of it go out the window because it becomes their own agenda. The other thing is, for every exam that you receive, these doctors get at least $9,000 per exam per veteran, per active duty member. So they're getting paid. So they need to conduct these exams the correct way.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So and I always tell people, when you get that package, read it, because it tells you if you're unsatisfied with your examination, what to do. And I also tell people the reason they provide you with the information about that doctor you're going to see, because you can also report them to the American Medical Association or Dental Association or Psychology Association against their license if their behavior is inappropriate.
All right, so now I'm gonna tell you what I thought it stood for. The BLF, but it's the Building Life Long Foundation. I always thought it was Brenda Lamb Foundation. For the life of me, you couldn't tell me no different. you couldn't tell me no different, but But what's that about?
That is my veteran service organization. Working, I work with the DAV doing active duty claims. So for me, that motivated me to establish my own veteran organization to help veterans. So I provide a lot of services to veterans. I do veterans claims for education. I do consultation. I do anything, I assist the families with whatever they need when it comes to finding out about their benefits, especially if the person is deceased or if they've been abandoned. A lot of people don't understand. We've had service members that go to jail. Well, if a service member goes to prison or jail, once they've been incarcerated for 60 days and they've had been receiving disability, it goes away. They only receive 10% of it, and it goes to whatever state or federal prison that they're in, and the rest of it, that's all they receive. Unless the family needs that money, then the VA has to sign them a fiduciary so they can continue to receive all of that benefit, with the exception of the 10%. Just 10% will still go to the incarcerated service member. Things like that. So it's a lot of things like that people don't even know. That when it comes to the family side of the benefits and things like that.
Oh, that's deep. That's deep. All right, my last question. Last question for the evening. And I had to go into this because something I shared with you. We just talking one day, and I just told you like one of my visions that I wanted to do, and it was help with homeless veterans. Just trying to get homeless veterans off the street.
Mm-hmm.
And me and you having the conversation. I said, my plan is just to get them off the street. I'm working on a house in Philly, and it's in renovation. It's about to be in renovation here shortly. To get it right and take the homeless veterans off the street and put them through a program to kind of get them back into the society and working and having a job. And lo and behold, you was like, Ty, I'm already doing that. And you actually gave me the blueprint just like that, and I felt so good about you doing that because I didn't know that you were doing it. It's weird. I didn't know you was a doctor. Let's go there. But we ain't gonna have a conversation now. I'm gonna talk to you about that later. Because you're a humble bumblebee. That's exactly how to describe you, because you have so many things going on, but you don't talk about them. You just go with the flow. Now, somebody asks you about them, Bob. That's when you unleash and give them everything. So it was like, I was like, man, I got to start somewhere and learning how to get these veterans off the street. And you actually gave me the whole blueprint, the whole nonprofit about it. So please speak about it, because it's a great program.
My EVFT, Empowering Veterans for Transition. I started my nonprofit in 2014, and I got into it. I have a partner who has always worked with the VA. At one time, he did the he was director where he would go around and do the education. But I actually met Mr. Tim Freeman when I was going through my PhD program, and he started mentoring me and teaching me how to get the best bang for my buck out of this system. And I always told him I always had a vision of just helping other veterans, always helping other veterans. And so I sat down with him one day. I said, you know, I sit down and I read, I look at all these grants. We need to get into doing something for veterans. So I developed a program called EVFT. It's a mission-based program that allows veterans to come into the different homes that we have. It provides them services such as, and it's based off of their needs. Some of them just may need some education, jobs, resume writing, or they may need the whole thing of just starting from scratch because nobody has been there for them in reference to teaching them how to get back involved in life. So I created this 5-phase mission program for my homeless veterans. And you also can get grants from the VA because you're taking care of veterans. You get on their watch list. You'll be a part of their program. I also sit on the board at the VA for mental health as well. So I constantly stay involved with the entire process for the homeless veterans. So when Ty brought that up, I just, here you go. Use mine. Hopefully it will help you develop your program. Because he may look at mine and say, oh, it's too lengthy, it's too long. But take what you can from it and use it, because we all have one mission, is to assist the active duty member from becoming a homeless veteran, and the homeless veteran getting back on their feet and feeling like they're more productive member of society. So that's what my nonprofit is about.
Oh, that's a blessing. That is such a blessing. Like I have known you probably literally like maybe 5 to 6 years, but I always heard about you. But my one of my Navy uncles kind of put me in contact with it, and it's been like, you know, people come into your life for a reason or a season or whatever it may be. But me connecting with you, then I was able to help other people to connect with you, and you actually took care of them without question. You know, and one guy told me one time that he said, man, if that lady ain't cussing you out or going off on you, that means she don't like you. I said, what you mean? He said, trust me, if she's silent or quiet and just saying yes, no, you done did something wrong to her. I said, bro, that don't even make sense. But after over time, I realized like it made sense. Like she go off on me just about anything, and I just be looking like, yes, ma'am, yeah, yes. But that's just the love she has. And then she turned around and gave me that information to help me start up my nonprofit. It was just a blessing. Again, Dr. Brenda Lamb, we appreciate you coming on, showing us some love and giving us some education. And again, you know, much success to you and what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys inviting me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You are welcome. Enjoy. Continue to help each other and take care of them fellow veterans.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
yeah, without question.